All right, good evening. Welcome to the City of Sandwich Committee of the Whole meeting of Monday, March 3rd. The time being 7 p.m. Will everyone please rise? Oh, I'm sorry. Call to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson.
Here.
Alderman Fritsch.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
Alderman Lilbrandt is absent. Alderman Robinson.
Here.
Alderman White Cotton.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. We'll move on with tonight's meeting. On the main report, we have an audit presentation from Sikich. Jeff, are they here? Are they?
Brian Lefevre is here from Sikich LLC.
Good evening, Brian. Welcome.
Good evening. On behalf of Sikich, I'd like to thank the mayor and the members of City Council for inviting us to present some brief comments on the report resulting from the audit of the city for your year ended April 30th, 2024. You should have a document called the Annual Financial Report. It'll be the largest of the documents that you have. And I'll go through that, and feel free to stop me with questions as we go, and we'll be able to answer questions at the end as well. In the annual financial report, if you go past the table of contents, you'll come to page 1, which is on Sikich letterhead. This is where we've given our opinion on the financial statements of the city. In order for us to give an opinion on the financial statements, we're required to follow 2 sets of standards. The first set of standards are the auditing standards, and those come from the AICPA, the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. And those standards tell us the types of procedures we need to perform when we're conducting our audit. The second set of standards are the financial reporting standards, and those come from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. And GASB sets the rules for financial statements for local governments such as the city. Once we've followed those 2 sets of standards and done all our testing, we can then issue an opinion on the financial statements. We're pleased to present an unmodified opinion. What that means is that the financial statements are presented fairly on the modified cash basis of accounting, free of material misstatement. Just past that opinion, which goes for 3 pages, you'll see another opinion. Well, what does that mean? Well, anytime that the city expends more than $750,000 in federal funds, you're required to have a separate, what's called federal single audit. And in this particular fiscal year is when you started drawing down on your IEPA loan. Those funds, while they come from the state IEPA, are composed of some federal funds and some state funds in any particular year. Of the funds drawn down from the IEPA, there was $4.1 million that was federal funds. So therefore, we're required to complete what's called a single audit. The single audit has 2 opinions. One opinion is here on page 4, which is on internal control over financial reporting, and then also on compliance and other matters. So there's 2 pieces there. The first is internal control over financial reporting. We're required to report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your internal controls as part of that. And so there is an identified segregation of duties issue that's on page, detailed and discussed on page 6. This is also part of the single audit report that goes to the federal government as well. The second piece I said was on compliance. So no findings on compliance over laws and regulations that could have a material impact on your financial statements. In the separate single audit then, we're also required then to test that major program, that IEPA program, and we issued in that separate report an unmodified opinion on compliance with the major program and had no question costs related to the IEPA program that was tested. When we get into the financial statements themselves, if we turn to page 7, page 7 is what I like to call a global view financial statement. If you take all of the funds that the city budgets and appropriates for, they go into either governmental activities or business type activities. Your business type activities, your water and sewer fund. You only see this statement and the following statement on pages 8 and 9 in your annual audit report because you don't operate on on a global basis like this, but you operate based on your budget on an individual fund basis. But it is required that you present these statements and have these statements audited to receive that unmodified opinion. Page 10 is more what you're used to seeing. Here is the balance sheet as of April 30th. On your audited financial statements, you consolidate your general fund with your capital fund, but they're separated out for you in fund balance. Fund balance being the amount of reserves that you had to begin the fiscal year that you're operating in now. Your capital fund balance was $942,000, and your general fund balance was $3,075,000. You can see that far left-hand column up a couple lines there in your fund balance section. So how did you get to the end of the year? You can see that on page 12, because page 12 shows you the revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances during the year. So your revenues, that first double underscore or that first subtotal in the far left-hand column is $6,644,000. Your expenditures of $7.4 million included $1.6 million in capital during the year. So while you did have a decrease in fund balance of $760,000, your budgeted decrease was actually $1.2 million. If you turn to page 15, your other two main operating funds are your water and sewer fund. The first subtotal there is your operating revenues. You see $1.4 million for sewer and $858,000 for water. Your operating costs, $788,000 and $911,000 respectively. You do, as a enterprise or proprietary fund, record your capital assets and depreciate them. So the depreciation isn't cash out the door. For the depreciation, it was cash out the door when you purchased or put in the capital assets. So that's that depreciation line. And then you can see your non-operating revenues and expenses. So overall, you have an increase in your net position for both the sewer and the water fund. Last financial statement to bring to your attention is on page 18, which is the income statement for your police pension fund. So as you know, a couple years ago, the funds in the police pension fund were consolidated in the statewide police pension fund, the Illinois Police Officers Pension Investment Fund, which gave you more opportunities in terms of investments than you had when you were a standalone fund. Your contributions from the city are that first line under additions, $896,000. The active member contributions of $104,000. Your net investment income for the fiscal year was $616,000 in the middle of the page there. Deductions or expenses of $744,000. So for the year, you had an increase of $841,000. Beginning of the fiscal year was a $6.7 million balance in the police pension fund and up to $7,548,000 at April 30th. The notes to the financial statements, which begin on page 19, give you a lot more details to support the financial statements that we just reviewed. There's just one item there to highlight on page 25. There's a disclosure in the deposit and investment disclosure. Third paragraph there talks about deposits with financial institutions, talks about custodial credit risk. Custodial credit risk is the risk that if one of the financial institutions that the city has deposits at were to go out of business, would you get your money back, and how would you go about doing that? Part of what we're required to do is test not only, obviously each of your banks, you have $250,000 in FDIC insurance, but then those that you keep more at, you have collateral pledged over and above that and safe kept at a third-party bank. So we confirmed that collateral and everything was in compliance with your investment policy. All of your deposits were fully collateralized. Last section of the report that I want to bring to your attention, we'll go back a little ways. Page 66 is the summary, if you will, of state and federal funds expended. One of the, besides the federal reporting in the single audit, there's also state reporting to the Governmental Accountability and Transparency Act Department, or GATA. So the GATA report's been filed with the state, which includes this report as well. But you can see of the IEPA money that was expended of $4.9 million, $780,000 was state and $4.1 million was federal. So that's what we're talking about related to that single audit as well. And then if you go a couple more pages, you come to facing pages 68 and 69. This is information related to your pension plans. So the sworn police officers are in the police pension fund, and then your other full-time employees are in IMRF. So the contributions made versus what's required by the actuary for IMRF over the last 9 years is on page 68, and you can see your budgetary impact was $35,787, right on top of what was required, because that's how IMRF is set up. You fund it based on a percent of payroll, and you're told by the actuary from IMRF that does an actuarial valuation for the city specifically what your employer contribution percentage will be on a calendar year. Then if you look at page 69, for the police pension fund, you have an independent actuary that gives your actually determined contribution. The city's been putting in more than what's was required the last 3 years in an effort to make up for some of the years that was less money put in. So $896,000, we saw that on the financial statements versus the actually determined contribution of $736,000. If you flip ahead 2 pages to facing pages 71 and 72, then you can see the financial results from the actuaries. First for IMRF, so the actuary looks at what's the total pension liability, meaning all of the participants in the plan, whether they be active employees or retirees, what are the total payments that are going to be made to those individuals during their lifetime. They take that number and they present value that back to December 31st, 23, which is IMRF's year end, and that first double underscore in the far right-hand column is $7,688,000. So that's the liability. Then there's the assets that are at IMRF to pay the beneficiaries of the city, and that's planned fiduciary net position. That's just GASB's fancy word for assets at market value, $7,698,000. So you actually have a little more in assets at 12/31/23 than liability, which is, so you had a net pension asset in the accounting world of $10,000. If you look at the top of page 72, during the calendar year of 23, you went from 94% funded to 100% funded. So a very well-funded plan. Turning over to the following 2 pages, you see the results then for the police pension fund through April 30th of 24. The total pension liability, same spot, that first double underscore, the far right-hand column of $18.2 million. The assets in the plan, like we saw in the financial statements, of $7,548,000. So the mathematical difference of $10,624,000. Percent funded is 41.5%. But that's almost double what it was back in 2020 at 23%. So definitely moving in the right direction with the funding for the police pension fund as well. Last page to bring to your attention is the schedule of investment returns for the police pension fund. So you can see fiscal year 24 was a really good year in the markets, and obviously the city also benefited from the fact that it was consolidated, so you could invest more in the markets, and your return was 9.54%. Those are what I'd consider to be the highlights of the report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Would you say that the city is in good financial standing?
I would say the city's in good financial standing, not having seen the city's financial statements as we sit here today, but based on how the fiscal year finished out at April 30th, your fund balances are all in good order.
Okay, for the county year for which you're reporting, correct?
Correct.
All right. I do note that you identified a deficiency or segregation of duty that I think it's important that the city address. And I believe we've tried to do that from, this audit, of course, goes back from 23, 24, we're now in 24, 25. We have 4 primary positions in our front office, and of course, we've added 2 of those in most recent years. They are a utility billing clerk, a collector, a finance analyst, and our administrator. I think it'd be beneficial if you maybe, if you don't mind, maybe overviewing what a best practice would look like in that office. I'd like to just give you 2 scenarios, not take up too much time, but maybe walk us through like who is best to handle those so we can respond to this correctly and fix this or make it correct. So if someone walked in and they had a payment and request for a permit, say for a fence. What would that process typically look like, and how should we handle that? If that's a fair question.
Sure. Typically, what you want, the system you want to have in place is a system of checks and balances, meaning it protects both the city and also the employees themselves from anything irregular or that could occur with such a transaction. So the individual that's in charge of the register, if you will, should, record that into the register and the appropriate dollar amount assigned to the account in the accounting system. That individual then should be separate from the individual that inputs the cash receipts for the day into the general ledger itself. In a perfect world, there's enough people then that a third person would be the person that would the individual that, back to the register, the individual at the register should balance out their drawer for the day with the receipt system. The money should then come to a third person that should count the dollars and get that ready for deposit. Sometimes the same person that was putting it in all day might be the person that does that, but definitely you want a third person to be the one taking it to the bank. And then that individual would bring back a receipt back to the person that had originally counted it, because or actually that would be to the individual that recorded it in the general ledger to make sure that that matches. At the end of the month, when the bank accounts are reconciled, meaning you have a bank statement, whether it be electronic or paper copy, that bank statement needs to be reconciled to what was recorded in the general ledger. So the activity, making sure that the bank has the same recording as the general ledger, and you'd want that to be an independent person than the individuals that were involved in the collecting of the cash and the recording on the general ledger.
Okay. So I believe you notified us of that, and we responded that we will review our processes for cash handling, recording, and the duties which would be involved in the process. Similar, just like if we had a water utility bill.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Then I believe we also filed our AFR with Susanna Mendoza's office. You mentioned that GADA's.
GADA's filed, the comptroller report is filed. The last piece that's left is on the single audit side. There's what's called the data collection form, which is basically taking all the information from the single audit and putting it in the format required by the federal government. Once that's complete, then I will approve that as the auditor, and Jeff, your city administrator, is set up as the auditee. We'll notify him when it's ready, and then he will sign off as the auditee, and then he'll press the button to file that to the federal government. But we'll have everything all loaded up, so he just needs to verify that.
Okay. I also think we'll review our process in preparing for the audit. I know that was a concern as well, so we'll try to address that. And then council will be voting on this at the next meeting, so then you'll be approving the audit. So any questions from council regarding the audit or the management letter, any documents that you've seen regarding the audit for?
I do have a question.
Yes, Rich.
In reference to a similar thing the mayor was asked about, the segregation of duties. Those noted weaknesses, is that something that is common in communities our size?
I would say that yes, it's common. And what I think is critical is because you do have a large amount of federal funds, those external grantors do look at these things. So to have first of all, in the single audit report, there's what's called a corrective action plan that the city has said, here's what we're going to do. There'll be the next audit is on us to follow up to see what changes were made. But then there's that reporting then back to the grantors as well to say, here's what the city has done.
And the reason I ask that is because I've sat through a couple of the audits, and I don't believe I've ever sat through one yet that this has not been pointed out by our auditor for the city of Sandwich. So I wanted people to understand that also, that it's that way because of personnel and manpower, and I'm assuming it's the same way in other communities the same size, that it's had to do with manpower and personnel. Because even though in a perfect world, it'd be nice to have those three people each and every day to do it. When someone's sick or someone's at lunch and the office is busy and people are doing things, sometimes for the job to get done, it might be two people that ended up doing it. I'm guessing there's probably been times where it's been one person that's done it because of people being sick or something else. And again, I just wanted to point out that it's not necessarily doom and gloom. We are trying to do better with it. I think you mentioned that there's 2 additional people in the office, so that basically would put 5 people in the office that have the availability of being able to do most of those items. So we should be in good shape now, I would think. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, well, thank you for the audit. We look forward to coming back with some other responses for you.
Great, thank you very much. Enjoy working with the city.
Thank you. All right, the next item is our attorney report. Attorney Gottschalk.
I have nothing that isn't already on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, city clerk report, Denise E.
Okay. You'll notice I'm on the different side this evening, and I must say, I can hear everybody. It's temporary, though. I just want to remind everyone, I had sent out an email about a week ago about executive session minutes. I really, really, really would like to get those approved prior to the end of the fiscal year. The book with all the minutes are available during office hours. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. City administrator report, Jeff Penman.
I'm going to hold my comments for a second meeting.
All right. All right, city department reports, EMA director, Tony Eberly.
So I've got a couple updates. First of all, from the EMA side, on the 21st, attended the quarterly Region 3 IEMA meeting in Kane County. A couple of topics that we covered were weather summaries for the winter as well as the summer. We talked about recovery programs, so community assistance and individual assistance programs, as well as hazard mitigation plans. After the meeting, also, I was able to talk to some of our local agencies, so Kendall County and Aurora EMA, about partnering and doing some drills and exercises across the 3 teams rather than individually, so we're going to make some progress on that. On the 28th, I met with the director at the Sandwich Public Library. She's looking to update her emergency planning. So we're going to be partnering with her, partnering with Chief Sunny's team as well as Chief Haggerty's team for some, hopefully, exercises and drills that they want to do on an on-site that they're going to be doing later this month. Reminder that the first week of March is Severe Weather Preparedness Week. In Illinois, there were a record-breaking 142 tornadoes last year. In comparison, there were 121 in 2023. Now is a great time to develop and review your personal safety plans at home, at work, in the vehicle, and planning ahead might save your life. Reminder that the monthly outdoor warning siren test is tomorrow at 10 a.m., which also coincides with the state tornado drill, all happening at 10 o'clock tomorrow. A couple non-EMA items is I just passed out to you tonight some information around the new city website, so some high-level metrics on over about a 4-month period, how people are interacting with the website. So it lists some of the top sites that people are interacting with. So at a highlight, the interactions are really around the jobs, the utility billing, meetings, employee directories, searching for facts and information, and the last top 10 across the board was the LEAF program. So that's just some highlights. There's some other information that we can capture, but just thought would let folks know how the site's being used. The last thing in your packets is an updated agreement. We can talk about this at the next meeting, but wanted to update the interoperability agreement between the city and the fire department to get that refreshed. Have talked to Chief Haggerty. Him and his board are very open to getting an updated version of that that would also allow the EMA team to help support across the board. So take a look at that, wanted to get it out to the council for any feedback or thoughts at a later meeting, and then get that to the city attorney for any updates, so we can get that reviewed and discussed with the council. So those are the updates I have. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, Police, Chief Senni.
Okay, just a reminder that the first quarter chief meeting is going to be on March the 10th, 6 PM at the police department. We're going to be going over the annual report. St. Patrick's Day campaign is going to begin on March the 7th and go to March the 18th. That's the additional traffic enforcement part of the grant that we have for additional traffic enforcement. Speaking of the traffic enforcement, we have reapplied for the grant for next year, which, when I say next year, it actually be approved in September and starts at beginning of October. So we've applied for that grant again. We currently have an application out for a crossing guard. So we're looking for a crossing guard. One of our crossing guards got a full-time job with the school, so she resigned her position. Happy to inform the council that we have decided on our next detective. It's going to be Officer Keith Rominski. He will be the next detective of the police department. Again, that's a work in progress as our staffing level changes to get him in there full-time. He's excited. On another note, when we talk about full-time, Officer Vega is resigning from the police department. He's actually going back to Chicago Police Department. That's where he was originally hired. He'll be going back there. His last date will be March the 14th with us. Officer Lundstein's, he is in his final stage of field training. He is to be released solo the week of March 17th. He's currently actually in the car by himself, just being shadowed by his FTO. We are currently conducting 5 background checks. We do have 2 spots in the academy, which starts on May the 4th. Our one lateral officer has gone through the entire process of the background check. And then we have one candidate that we've started the background that is already a certified police officer. He's just under 2 years, but it does allow us to bump him up with the Police and Fire Commission rules. The tasers have been delivered to the department. We're going to be looking to issue them shortly. We have a couple modifications where a couple officers would like different holsters for them, so we have to get those holsters ordered, and then we have to do some setup with the taser. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have them out. The DARE bowling fundraiser raised about $1,000 for the DARE program, so thank you for those that came out to support the event. And then just want to put this out there, the department is going to be having an Easter Day egg hunt on April the 5th. More details will come out on that as we get closer. And then the first Explorer meeting is going to be on March the 15th. I just want to thank Officer Hagelin for the work that he's done on that program. He's done a lot to get that program up and running. And then just a reminder of the community to our website and the community dashboard. Always great information on both of those websites. And then thank the officers for the job that they're doing every day.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Senni? Yes, Rich?
Are you full staff right now?
No, sir.
Who are you, what positions are you short?
Well, as of the 14th, I'll be a short 2 patrol officers.
Vega
And then Mumbauer.
so all right, so Mumbauer, you've already been short one then?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Engineer Kurt Detman.
All right, just have one thing to mention. Main Street Road Improvement Project, the letting is March 7th, which is this Friday, so we'll find out where we're at with that project, which will start later this year.
That's it? Okay. Economic update, Don Alexi. Don, you want to come on up?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just some quick updates. Development, things going on in the city, projects. Of course, Fair Winds Phase 4 has been front and center for the last couple of weeks as we try to finish out the agreement, come to, so we can get it started. It's very important to the city. Tonight, also on your agenda, you have the the intergovernmental agreement with DeKalb County for the Arneson property, which would be what the northwest corner of Glutty and County Line Road. Once that is signed, that turns over all jurisdictional control to the city and to the city of Sandwich. which means that all these conversations that our new building official, Ian, has been having with Fay's architect will now be definitive, and they can come up with a final plan. We should see, he's looking to open by the end of April. There's a lot of things to do, and we'll see if it gets done. Dollar Tree is moving forward. The only thing we're waiting on from them is a response from Kurt Request. We've talked to them today. They should have it shortly. Ian's got all the permits pretty much ready to go. We might be even done with this by the end of the week. They should start no later than April 1st is their plan, about an 8 to 10 month build, all right, to get it up and running. The solar farm has supplied all their building information. Kurt's reviewing stormwater management. Ian's got everything else pretty much handled and covered. We have to just meet with Jeff, Ian, and I to talk about the permitting and fees and things and that. So that's ready to go. They will not start. They won't have a crew available to come here until June. So they'll start building in June. I don't know much about the length of time it's going to take. We haven't got that far into it. We're notified by the hospital last week that they're going to be doing some remodeling projects within the building, 2 separate areas. One will be, they're replacing all their x-ray equipment, updating all the equipment, and then they are changing out some bathrooms to ADA in that area. And then they are also clearing out one room for bone scan machines. So they'll be doing that. I have a Zoom call with the project manager tomorrow and his supervisor, just a how are you doing type of call. I haven't had a chance to meet anybody at the hospital. I'd like to see what their plans are, listen to what they want to do. In these cases, the plans I've been told, are pretty complete. However, because it's a hospital, it has to go to the Illinois Department of Public Health, and they're waiting for their permits from them. And evidently, Illinois Department of Public Health gets to go first and then us. So we're working on that. Cloud Permit is a software the city has purchased for building permits, code enforcement, licenses. We had our first training session with it this morning. We're pretty far along with it. We should have that up and running. The permit section will go up first, then code enforcement, and then licensing. So that'll be a big help. That'll save a lot of time. There'll be no more paper, or very little paper, and it just makes things a lot easier. We can all look into it. If I get an inquiry, and Ian's not around, I can look into it and just see where he's at with it, and it's a very helpful tool. In the last month, we've had 3 commercial brokers approach us. One has got a client who has a restaurant franchise, is trying to decide multiple locations, but he's here. The only thing I know about it is really that he owns several franchises, and he's opening 2 restaurants right now, which is slowing the decision-making process. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with a developer who's his focus is commercial and hospitality. We'll see what that's about tomorrow. And then there's a third broker who has 2 customers, one that does residential and one that does commercial use. We've been sharing information on locations. Very preliminary on that one. For those who don't know, ComEd has what they call the Municipal Facility Assistance Program, where they survey your buildings and tell you how they can assist in reducing your costs. We had City Hall and the Annex Building surveyed a couple weeks ago. They came back, they hire a company to do it, and then they go back to ComEd with their facts and figures, and ComEd came back with a report that says by just changing out the lights, we can we can reduce our kilowatt usage by 19%, which, just kind of figuring off the bills, that's about a 9% cost savings. In addition, on the paperwork, it says that ComEd will pick up the entire cost. There's no cost to the city on these 2 buildings. We're meeting out at the police department Thursday. They're going to survey that. Kind of interested what they're going to say about that big air conditioner in the back, see what help we can get there. So we're going to get them to look at that. They did tour the wastewater treatment plant building. I haven't got that report. I guess ComEd's a little backed out getting the report, but it's the building, everything in the building, and all the exterior lighting. It is, you have to remember that the wastewater treatment plant, they've done a lot of these studies and work with a lot of industries. The wastewater treatment plant's an industrial usage. It's a high-volume usage. So we're trying to look whatever we can do there to save. There was a solar project prior and it didn't happen. I take these webinars and since that solar project, some things have changed. If we were to put a solar field to service the wastewater treatment plant and to sell back into the grid, there's two programs out there that the city is eligible for. One is the State of Illinois Shine Program, which would give us 25% back in tax credits. And there's also U.S. Department of Energy, it's called Direct Pay Program, which started January 1st. They would provide us 40% tax credits back. So together, we would get 65% back in about 18 months from completion. Something to think about. I'm trying to work out the numbers. The Illinois Finance Authority will provide a 1% to 2% loan for the 65% of the cost. That's all short-term loans that they're doing. They would help with the other side, but specifically 1% to 2% on the 65, and they would handle the tax credit transfer back. It's something to think about. Need to know more numbers. We're talking to our energy consultant. I need to know how much, just capacity, how much the help. And if we take the wastewater treatment savings and we can sell into the grid also from that facility, we might be able to return the money back on the 35% quickly. But again, we got to just put a business plan together. I need some more numbers. And we'll just continue on. We seem to be getting a lot of phone calls, so I'm really happy with that. We'll just try to bring them along as far as we can bring them. Any questions?
Can you let us know where the Dollar Tree is going?
Dollar Tree is going to be right next to A&B. Right, they bought their first lot right next to them.
Thank you.
And you said the solar field is going in July or June? They're coming?
They're going to start the build in June. They'll have their permits way ahead of time, but that's when they're scheduled to get a crew out here to start.
Okay.
I'd like to comment about our hospital and the remodeling. I think that just shows that Northwestern's committed to our hospital, which is important. We hear a lot of times that people are concerned that what is its future and how much are they investing in it. So
Yeah,
that was good news that came from that as well.
And when they contacted us, they had the permit filled out, they had all the plans there. Everything came in one package, and it's all, I don't think there's gonna be any corrections or anything like that. They're still under review. But we have to wait for the public health is in between us, so.
Good. Thank you, Don. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to council reports. Alderman Arnett.
I've got a couple things. First, brush collection will start beginning of April, so I want everybody to keep an eye on the city's website regarding dates when your brush will be collected. Second thing, I want to clarify something regarding previous council. There was a little back and forth regarding Phase 4 subdivision at last council. It was brought up that I did a bad faith negotiation for the city. Well, in a negotiation, two sides meet and each side basically gives up one thing or another. You come to a middle ground and you make an agreement. The one thing the developer did, they knew I had issues with the previous document that was brought out, a document that they were surprised that we were actually given due to the fact that it was so incomplete to begin with. At no point did the developer ask me to concede anything on the city side of things. And I know that going into it, I can't do that anyways. There's 8 of us up here that have to make an agreement to concede anything for the city. The only thing I brought up were my concerns with the document. They had the same concerns because the document wasn't good at all. And it was also said that I attacked the developer. I didn't attack the developer. What I was attacking was a document we were given that was terrible. When a document's brought to city council, we think negotiations had previously happened. And so we look at the document and say, this isn't gonna work for the city. It's our job to say something. We don't sit down, we don't shut up, we say something. So as far as I'm concerned, I was doing my job. it was brought up that an HOA meeting, Rebecca and I visited. The HOA in question happens to be in Ward 2. And two of us going to an HOA meeting to listen to comments from people in our area is our job once again. So two of us going to a meeting, at no point hits OMA, it crosses no lines. We're doing our job. So when it comes down to it, if something comes to us, it's our job to say something. I'm not gonna sit down, I'm not gonna be quiet, I'm going to say something. It's our job to stand up for our residents. If nobody out there likes the way I'm doing my job, my seat's up in 2027. Take it. My phone's always on, my email's always open. Send me a message. I'm always happy to talk. But until that day, I'm gonna continue doing the job I think I need to do. And I wanna thank those guys, because I think the meeting that we had expedited this development significantly. Because had we gone back and forth in this ping pong thing, this thing could have been drug out months. So, that's it.
Okay, Alderwoman Erickson,
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderman Fritsch,
Nothing, thank you.
Alderwoman Johnson.
I just want to say one thing on top of that. I've heard the comment over and over again that we're picking on each other. We have robust conversations up here. We may disagree, and you may not like the tone, but we do have to discuss things, whether it's hard or not. So I just want to put it out there. We're all open to talk to any of you guys anytime, so, you know, if there's something specific, let us know. Otherwise, I mean, again, we're gonna disagree. So it's not, I don't have anything against anybody here, but it is what it is, so. All right, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Kreinbrink.
Just a reminder that we have a budget meeting tomorrow at 4:30 here in the council chambers. And hopefully it'll be the last one for the committee before final documents are put together and then something's brought forth for the council to have a deeper dive into it.
Okay, Alderman Robinson.
I was gonna wait till next meeting, but just a quick question, reference this budget meeting. When you say you're having one more budget committee meeting before stuff's presented to the council, so we're not gonna do any committee of the whole budget meetings then?
These first meetings are just to get the preliminary information laid out to make sure that they're in a format that's realistic and reasonable. So some of the things have been changed as we've gone along. They weren't necessarily in a position to where we could make a definitive answer up until recently. So there will be some meetings that will be probably council meetings to where we have clear direction and conversation about it.
Because to be clear, the rest of the council cannot participate openly during your budget meetings because it's not a committee of the whole meeting. It would just be the 3 budget members only.
And I've stated before that we can talk about, we can open up dialogue for each section if we need to, for feedback from the audience if need be. So there's different ways of working it. That's just a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. So feel free to come and see how it goes.
Well, again, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it since it's not a posted meeting as far as the committee of the whole, and I wouldn't want it to be a violation then because it would be the entire council or more than just the budget committee. So again, yes, it's different than what we've been, but even last year, they turned into committee of the whole budget meetings so we could participate. What I don't want is us to be taking steps backwards because there's only been 2 or 3 people from the council being on the budget committee who are basically picking and choosing what's getting funded, how it's getting funded, et cetera, because there's probably things that have changed from last year's budget, and there were surprises with last year's budget as far as after we thought we had passed the budget. Certain things that we thought were there and they weren't, and certain things that we thought we had agreed to, but apparently we had only discussed and it wasn't passed.
Yeah, so alls we've done so far, Rich, is we have looked at the line items that have been presented, and it's just basically a litmus test. And then at some point, we're gonna look at the bottom dollars once everything's put into that. Because what they're really trying to do is figure out where the ending cash balance is going to be, and that's gonna be the driving force for moving forward. So until we get a little bit closer, forecasting those numbers is a little difficult. So even numbers from the first meeting to this second meeting, they had changed.
Okay.
So right now, we haven't, like, we talked a little bit about, like, areas within the capital budget that may have to be cut. You know, if there's 18 police cars that need to be replaced, there's not 18 in the fleet. We know we might only be able to do 2.
Okay.
Something like that, so.
No, I appreciate that.
It's just general discussion at this point, because, I mean, there's a lot going into it, and the format's changed, and there's data that's being pulled in, you know, comments and so forth to kind of identify as to why the numbers are off, or why, not off, but aren't balancing from what was originally budgeted. So if it's under, there's a reason. If there's overages, there's reasons. So it's very comprehensive this year for where we stand.
Okay, no, I look forward to being able to participate eventually,
Yeah,
so,
no, we'd love to have you.
thank you.
Okay, anything else, Fred?
No, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Alderman White Cotton?
The only thing I have tonight is wonder where we stand on the bid specs for demolition on Main Street.
I'd like to get those advertised this week. It's right here, so.
I've
Told you I was
reviewed
gonna
it.
keep reminding you.
No, it's
I've
fine.
reviewed it, and I didn't have any comments, so I think it's good and ready to go. Okay, is that it, Rick? Anything else? Okay. All right, old business. So tonight, the council and committee of the whole can discuss the developer agreement for Phase 4 of Fairwood subdivision. You'll have an opportunity to either waive first reading at the next regular meeting following this, or you can further discuss it. So tonight, it's open for discussion. I'll let us start with the attorney, just giving you an update of where we're at with that document. And then I'll open the floor for comments or discussion.
So the only real difference between the document that is, and Rick is here, Attorney Williams, on behalf of the developer. The only real difference that was added this afternoon was a request by the developer for paragraph 4, letter J. They had requested, and I see no issue with it, that there be an additional option that if we accept the improvements, that then the public improvement bond or letter of credit could then be reduced. So it would be an A, a B, and a C on the bottom of page 9 there in your packet. But other than that, Jeff and Don sat down and really went through this with some of the concerns they had. And as everyone knows, we had sat down with them before the last meeting. And so this is what I believe to be the final version. And if there are questions, either I or Rick or Jeff or Don could potentially answer them.
Okay, questions from council? Yep. Yes, Adam?
Paragraph 4, and this is what I previously asked, and it was for Kurt and engineering, because I'd be surprised the developer themselves would agree to this. So it talks about final engineering plans, and we're talking about the engineering plans that were previously approved, but it leaves it extremely open-ended in this paragraph, financially for the developer. Parties acknowledge that certain updates or modifications may be required to the plans, and developer shall obtain approval from the city's engineer of said updates or modifications. You don't even know what you're building.
If I may, so obviously part of a contract is a meeting of the minds. There was a very long discussion about what Kurt needs kind of just drawn on the current plans. And just making sure that with the topography, that it is all going to
Right,
go
but in
smoothly.
engineering, it takes everything into account. It takes pipe sizes, pipe lengths, it takes everything. So with that sentence in there, it essentially says, if we decide we need to change something mid-plan, developer agrees, they are going to take care of that.
Well, there's a provision in there that, I mean, somewhat differently. If we require oversizing that is different than what's there, we're taking on the difference in that cost.
If I may address that too.
Yeah.
So the issue is, these plans were approved in 2003, and everybody wants to make sure when we go out and do our field work that the plans that were approved and the existing conditions line up, okay? And if for some reason we find that the prior developer didn't put a sewer line or a water line at the right location or at the right grade, we understand that we have to fix that. But the existing plans is what we're understanding, we're able to proceed. We're just making sure that what we do fits reality, and we all need this to work. So we're agreeable to this. We've had conversations with Kurt. Kurt met with our engineer Friday, I believe. And so we are confident that we can work together. We're not anticipating that the city's gonna come to us and say, you have to do dramatic changes.
So I can just comment a little bit. I did talk with the developer's engineer, and we went through the specific documents that need to be submitted. And what this is it's taking the originally approved development, what was submitted, what was approved back almost 20 years ago, and creating essentially documents that can be filed with this permit to show what they're going to build. And like Rick mentioned, this is going to be showing those existing conditions, like where the sanitary sewer stops, for instance, and the rim and the invert that it's at, verifying the pipe size to make sure that it is what was supposed to be put in the ground, and then going from that point. And modifications to the plans will need to be done at some point, whether they're going to be some sort of a shop drawing construction plan that's added and submitted separately, or it's going to be markups on the plans. I'm waiting to get back some information on that to see exactly how they're going to do that, but there's going to be some documentation that covers these pieces. I do know that the sanitary sewer, based on the as-built, was not installed exactly at the grade that it was designed. It almost never happens. It was installed actually 8 or 9 inches high. So there's going to have to be some reworking of the sanitary inverts and verification that the crossings work. And these are that's part of what they're going to have to do on the engineering side. I have to work with the engineer to make sure that that does get done properly so that the slopes are correct, meeting IPA standards, and that the city will accept these things. The water main, same way. Storm sewer, the same thing. Connecting in and making sure that everything is going to be integrated to what's already out there, and it's going to follow the intent of the original approved plans.
Okay, well, ultimately, I'm gonna go back to exactly what I said at last council. And the mayor even said it himself, that the way this thing works, and I think this document, I would vote yes on it. But in voting yes, it was said that the way things happen, documents brought to council, council approves the document, city engineer states he agrees with the project. So what this sentence here currently doesn't state that the city engineer agrees with what's going on in the project. What I'm looking for, I've got homeowners out there with 28 pounds of pressure in areas. I just need to know from the city's engineer side of things that, yes, I feel what's going in the ground here will provide these 58 plus what is already existing with what they need.
Well, if you're talking water pressure, is that what are we talking?
Well, it's
so
all
are we
going into
talking, are we talking
engineering.
stormwater in the pond or water pressure? I've heard two different sides and it's both water. Are we
Well,
talking
the
about?
stormwater in the pond, these guys did a great job. They put in writing in here that they're going to help with the ponds.
Yes,
They put in writing that they're going to do it at their cost.
yes.
So we're talking about water pressure in certain areas. I want to know that you're confident that anything we put in the ground is going to work for the people out there.
So the water pressure works on a global system. Adding 58 homes does not change the water pressure for the area in Fairwinds. Plain and simple.
And then also, and this isn't anything against the document or you guys, but it is against our ordinances because, and I know these are typical in construction as Connex boxes, but currently in our ordinances, we do not allow them in town. So in order to allow Connex's boxes to be put on site, we would have to do something with that. So, and that's in paragraph 4 under D.
Or D.
And that's, I personally, if it was in our ordinances allowing them, wouldn't have a problem with it because they're everywhere in construction. But currently our ordinances don't allow them.
So the idea, this development agreement will supersede that, and so for this specific temporary purpose, they will be permitted.
Okay.
Yeah, the developer agreement, just like attorney said, it's a standalone document. So you can make modifications, and that's the whole point about developer agreements, is you make concessions that you want to help the developer get in and do things.
Other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I think, Adam, that the Connex box I know isn't typical, but I think it was a response to some of the concerns about either equipment or items left out by the previous developer, or someone that may see that may want to take possession of that. It should also reduce our policing need up there too. So I think the intention is that it was more secure and safer that way from some of the concerns we had about the previous development. And then it has a point in here where it needs to be removed. So it's just not sitting there.
Right, I understand that. It was only brought up because it was brought up in previous councils regarding Connex boxes here in town. And I don't want to have Connex boxes dropped out here and have no answer for somebody that contacts us.
No,
That's it.
I understand, I agree. I know that was an issue before, so it was a specific request by the developer, so. We'd call that short-term.
Yeah, there's language in here that we have to get it out within 30 days of completing the project. We appreciate the city's flexibility on that.
Okay, other questions on the proposal? Yes, Rich?
I, too, and one might have already been answered, but I had on page 10 of 18 there, the oversizing, and I just wanted to clarify. I wrote down a note here and trying to listen when you were talking about it. In accordance with the previous annexations agreement, as it pertains to like other annexed properties that we have, we're not talking about like the pipe's gonna still be there for our other ones that we have that aren't built yet, aren't developed, but they are annexed into the city. For example, Deer Path Woods or whatever. It will be connecting to this subdivision. So if there were any requirements, that's something ahead of time, but I don't think there is, because I think this was prior to Deer Path. This is just if there's anything extraordinary that we're asking oversizing.
Right, it's our understanding that there will be no oversizing required if, in the course of construction, the city says, hey, we'd like you to oversize this for this reason, we will cooperate and do that.
Okay, all right. And the other note I had, and might be the similar thing, but page 15 of 18, number 15 under conflicts, just where it talks about in the event any conflict or inconsistency between the terms and provisions of this agreement and any existing of hereafter adopted ordinances. They're throwing me off with the hereafter adopted ordinance. Are they talking about anything that comes up later, or are they talking about things that are prior? So if it's something
Both.
prior.
It's both,
But if it's something prior.
right? So what we're agreeing is that this agreement is going to control regardless of what our ordinances currently say or what they may say in the future as it pertains to this specific project.
So have we had somebody look at all of our codes and ordinances and regulations to make sure that there's not gonna be something that is in conflict?
In specific detail, I wouldn't say that, but the idea is that I'm trying to use a good word. It doesn't matter. We believe that what is contained in this agreement is in everyone's best interest.
Okay.
So whether or not there is a conflict, I mean, the perfect example is the Connex boxes. Currently, we have an ordinance that says it's not allowed. This agreement says we're gonna allow it for that specific purpose, and we believe that to be in everyone's best interest.
And the only reason I'm asking is because if and I cannot think of anything, but I'm just throwing it out there. If there was something that we had in an ordinance or whatever, and it was completely overlooked, because we have a engineering firm that's acting in our stead as our city engineer, but we don't have somebody who's been around, who's been doing it, who'd be like, yes, this is something that we need to do for, et cetera. So I'm just, if something was serious, basically because of this paragraph, though, it's not gonna matter. We're gonna go by what this agreement is.
Yeah, and I don't think that really is going to be an issue based on, I mean, the things that are in the ordinances that change often are like the fees, right? So we're setting the fees so they can't be changed. The ordinances also discuss the, park and land cash, things like that. And so I can't think of any specific conflicts with our ordinances. We did do, and I would say Jeff and Don did a pretty good job of actually going through our ordinances and checking. Perfect example is our ordinances say that construction is from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. They had put in till 8 p.m. So we just went in and made it match with our ordinances. So I would say that Jeff and Don could probably speak better to that, but
Well, the one point I wanted to make is that we did add as an addendum the chapter of the municipal code that is our subdivision ordinance, so that if it isn't addressed in here, we would refer to the subdivision ordinance for direction as to where to go.
Okay.
And we felt like that was a good compromise in a way that we at least had something to refer to in case we did miss something.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was addressed, so.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments or
I
questions?
have one quick question. I want to make sure it's clear. Any and all modifications or changes will be run by you first and approved or not approved?
Engineering related, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, I'm in close coordination with their engineer. We got on the same page. We had a good conversation on Friday to go through in detail the different documents that we really need to have. And this is specifically for 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that we have backup documents that shows what was done, how it was done, how it was approved and permitted, so that there's no question.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, then
thank
we'll move
you.
on to the next meeting for council's consideration. All right, next item I have is item B, discussion about defining an ordinance for the role of the administrator. Jeff?
Good evening. I did send this out to everybody. I hadn't gotten a lot of response from everyone. I also included a number of ordinances that Cassandra had provided to me within the first couple months that I was hired. It was kind of one of those things that was early on our list to look at and kind of dropped off. I found plenty of other things that I felt like were more important, but at this point, we're kind of bringing it back and looking again. Is this the role that everybody has for an administrator? I would encourage you to look at it from the position standpoint and not from me as an individual. I think it's more important for the council to try to figure out, okay, what is this role? I mean, we're in a transition period a bit. I mean, in the past, I think alderpersons have had a much more hands-on role. I feel like, since I've come along, I'm doing a lot of those things. Does that work for everybody? Does it not work for everybody? It's something everyone needs to think about and consider. If there's things in there that we don't like, that's fine. Let's fix it. Let's make it something that's going to work. So that's really the intent. And, I would really prefer, to have a lot more information on this from everybody else. I'm not comfortable making this decision. I have thoughts and as to how I think it should go, but that doesn't mean that I'm looking to dictate that. I think it's really important for the council to understand and hopefully look at the things and the way things have gone for over 2 years, and there's things you like, there's things you don't like. Let's discuss it. Let's figure it out. Let me know, and if there's things we can do differently, let's do it.
Okay, comments from council?
I read the whole ordinance and I think it'll work.
Okay, anyone else? Rich?
I've got a few things that I'll send you.
Okay,
I'll swing
great.
by and talk to you.
That'd be great.
Apologize if I haven't had time. I've been gone, and so I will be in touch.
No, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so the intent then is to clean that up into ordinance form so it can be adopted into the code. Okay, moving on to item C, that is our lead service line discussion. Jeff?
There's a note that was prepared by our water superintendent, just speaking a little bit about our lead service lines and the inventory. Kind of gives all the background as to where we believe are at. And I want to say, I mean, we know of the 7 lines that'll need to be done on Main Street as part of the Main Street project that are coming up. And I know we had some different numbers thrown around. And according to this, I believe it's 70 lines is what we have identified for replacement. So that would be over a period of time. Obviously, bidding on the project, if we're gonna do them all at once, we put them out to bid, that could change. Short side service installs are estimated at about 7,000 a line. And then a long side service install would be about $11,000. That's today. I mean, obviously, inflation could go into it. There's different things. So, and what I mean by a short service install would mean that being able to run to the main without having to cross the street in a sidewalk or what have you. I mean, it's a short run versus a long run. So those are just some estimates that Brian was able to provide. It's probably ideal to look at probably $10,000 or $11,000 per service is probably what the cost would be. Ideally, and we have to continue our work with our budget committee, but it would be nice to be able to set a dollar amount annually that we set for this. Now, whether we decide to share that cost with residents or if we want to pick up the whole cost, I think it's one of those things that if we can get a set dollar amount, we can get a certain number done every year and begin working towards that. So, did anybody else have comments on this?
Yep. So I went through our ordinances, and, well, I'll start with cost to begin with, because that's where I had a sticking point last time. Short side service, if we're looking at 70 services, it's bare minimum $490,000, as Jeff said today. $490,000 to hang on the residents. Long line, $11,000 per line, is $770,000 for us to give to our residents. Under our ordinances, 86-5 service pipes. C, repairs. All repairs for existing service pipes from the water shut-off box to the building and to the plumbing systems of the building shall be made by and at the expense of the owners. The city may, in case of emergency, repair service pipes from the shut-off box to the building, and if this cost is done, cost of such repair shall be repaid to the city by the owner. That's our ordinance. So if we're going to agree to do this, it'd be going against our current city ordinances. Also, it talked earlier in the letter from Brian about a home on Main Street not needing a line replaced because a plastic service line was run from the B-box inside.
I believe it still has to be replaced on the city side, though. Is that not correct?
It was replaced on the homeowner's side, right. Plastic. Under section 74-28 in our ordinance. Item number 4, water services. All water services shall be constructed of type K copper pipe, not plastic. So if we have lines in town that are being replaced with plastic, it's not legal. And is the cost at $7,000 a line plastic, or is the cost at $7,000 a line type K? It's something we don't know.
I don't know that right off, Adam.
I mean, honestly, I think we need to give, because
should
the
be
state of
copper,
Illinois
yeah.
has given us an end around on this entire thing. We need to give our residents a chance to at least answer if they'd be willing to opt out. Because as our ordinances sit right now, the city legally cannot pay for this. And if our residents choose to opt out, when they do sell their home, they have a chance to transfer that cost to anybody that would like to purchase their home. No one is forcing anybody to spend a penny. The state isn't forcing us to spend a penny, and we're not right now forcing our homeowners to spend a penny. Our homeowners have the right to opt out.
Okay, other questions from council? So this was in response to some questions you previously had, but our superintendent of water responded to those. Sounds like there might be some more questions. I think Jeff's wrote those down as well, so we'll take those back and get more answers.
I have a question for what's your opinion on plastic pipe?
So PAX is a little newer technology.
I was told it's used in other towns.
What's that?
I was told it's used in other towns.
It is used in other towns. Copper is still dominant. I don't know if I have a real personal opinion for or against it. I would prefer copper simply because it is, it's a material that's been used a very long time, since around the 60s when things changed from galvanized and lead and everything like that. So you're using it a very long time. People know about how to use it. And if you get good installers, it's something that lasts a very long time. I would be worried to see with PAX, if it's not installed properly, if it would get scratched and possibly crack, leak, I don't know. I don't know about that part of it, so.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll bring back some more information as this continues. And again, still, we're waiting for our final report to come back from our engineering firm on this whole study. So this is still a work in progress. Okay, item D is discussion approval of an intergovernmental agreement for DeKalb County. This has to do with the property at 21 Gleddy Road. So this comes up to you on the next meeting if you wish to vote. We have a resolution that went before our county board, DeKalb County, and then it comes back to the City of Sandwich as the cooperating agreement. I hope everyone's had a chance to read that, or any questions on that that staff can answer, or myself.
The county did pass the intergovernmental agreement. This is just a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign that agreement and clerk.
So there's no questions, and it will be on the regular meeting. Next item is new business, certificate of authority to purchase salt.
This was something that was kind of a last-minute add, so it did not go on the regular agenda. We'll have to vote on it next time. But basically, this is just authorizing 2 staff members to be able to purchase salt through the state bid process. We filled out the paperwork before, but they want the actual people who are placing the order to be authorized to do so. So it's a pretty simple agreement form that they sent us. We'd probably just bring it back next time for approval.
Okay, questions on the document?
Yeah, I have a question. I would like the document to reference salt purchases. I think we're given 2 staff members that are good. I have no problem with that, but to bind the city to a contract with the state, it's kind of weird.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good point. Thank you.
So they're not gonna, are they gonna determine the amount to order, or are they just following instruction from?
Basically, it's ordering it as it's needed. I mean, we have a certain amount that we budget for every year for salt. You know, there's a minimum amount we have to take in order to, it's a range. So if we have a season where we have no snow, a lot of times we have salt that's left over, but we'll still have to take a minimum amount. But if we have a year where we use a lot, we may need to order our full amount or whatever's available. So it's kind of how it works. But yeah, the state goes out to bid on the salt. It's pretty simple. I mean, it gets used by everybody throughout the state. So,
But I guess what I'm asking is, the street superintendent would advise him on how much he needs?
yes,
Okay.
because doesn't do me any good to go out to the salt shed and say, yeah, I think we need 3 loads. I count on Nick, definitely.
We do lock in every year because if we had really good weather and we didn't have to buy any salt, they have a standard amount we have to buy every year. So this is a typical process that we've done every year. Okay, if there's no further comments on the certificate, then we'll move on to announcements. Anyone have announcements? Jeff, anything?
Just that we've got a budget meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, audience comments. I have Becky Nelson. You want to come forward? Tony, is the microphone on? You have 5 minutes for your comment.
I was just going to comment on the last ordinance conversation related to a city administrator position. I just have some concerns about what I've experienced with this position currently, and without making it personal, I really want to talk a little bit about some key bullet points of responsibility. During the month of November, I know that there were numerous calls made to the attorney for very simplistic statute questions related to political yard signs, election campaign petitions, as well as election campaign challenges. And so my inquiry is to the council, do we have a job description for the city administrator? We're gonna write an ordinance about the city administrator, but do we have a job description? So I did a little bit of research, and I do believe that Plano has a city administrator ordinance. And in there were some entities that I felt Sandwich should have in that same leverage of that role, which would include OMA responsibilities, Open Meetings Act, making sure that the agendas are written, making sure that the minutes are written and approved, and having the efficacy and the education to be able to do it without having to send it to the attorney every time, because we're spending a lot of money on attorney fees to read things that really at a council level can be amended by vote, and at an administrator level can be critiqued. So at the end of the day, if you're gonna put an ordinance in place for a city administrator, I would like to, as a member of the community, I'd like to understand where $102,000+ in salary is being afforded in the tasks, daily tasks, and which ones perhaps overlap the current city clerk's job, which is an elected official, of course, and which ones overlap our alderman roles, and which one overlaps our attorney. So, if you're gonna have a $102,000 payroll item, I would like to better understand what the job description is for that particular title. The second thing I wanted to mention was, at the level of meritocracy, when you think about a job that has that salary, I want to make sure that there's some sort of a check and balance for that position. Not necessarily the person, but the actual role, the actual tasks that are being performed. In my last role as a corporate employee and supervisor, we did what we called biannual reviews. So I know that a lot of those things are redacted because of privacy and everything, but at the end of the day, I believe that as an alderperson, you would want to know if there's being a biannual review with that city administrator, with not only the mayor, but also the council. So these are just some things that kind of came to my mind when I think of a $102,000 salary. And again, these are all driven by being a citizen of the community and getting an expensive water bill and watching the budget, looking at the finance line items, seeing the attorney fees, and questioning the integrity, the efficacy, and the education of that role in regards to the ordinance that you're planning to pass. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next is Sandy Kohler.
Hi. Couple of things, kind of sort of along the lines Becky was saying. I'm finding it hard to believe that we're spending time paying an attorney to talk about things that are all going to change if our current mayor happens to lose the election. Jeff has a contract that's up. Why don't we leave it to the next administration, which would happen in a month and a half? If Mayor Latham gets reelected, then of course he can build his cabinet his way, but the rationale behind the administration's push to implement municipal code changes at this time is a waste of time, energy, and effort. You have had 4 years, 3 years in which to do a code. There's been many, as he said, talks about his job description and what he does and who he oversees and this and that. If you guys wanted a code so bad, why wait till a month and a half before election? Why wasn't it done 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago when I started raising all sorts of heck about it? Because jobs are getting crossed. Too much money is being spent on attorneys for just to read an email or open an email when it should be in the job purview of that person that actually quit doing 2 jobs that he was put in place to do, which makes no sense either. One of the biggest things that I've been doing a lot of research in lately is what it means to be a city. Cities are often many different kinds of government. There's mayor council, there's mayor administrator, there's legislative, there's all sorts of different ones. Our city, as founded by the state of Illinois, is a mayor council city. This was decided and done in 1873, ratified again in, I don't know if anybody can read this handwriting back from them, but this is ridiculous. 1936, this is the letter and the paperwork that made Sandwich what it is. It's my grandma's handwriting. It's been hard. But they wanted it to stay a city built by the people, for the people, and ran by the people and the constituents that are here, not by a strong mayor government. There has been so many municipal codes to sneak in and give the mayor more power or the administrator more power. But the problem with that is the aldermen voted for most of them, whether it was a 4-4 and he broke the tie or what. But you guys have to read more carefully what the heck you're having put in front of you, because you're agreeing and giving more and more power of ours away. And we elected you guys as our aldermen to represent us. Adam, great job representing, didn't deserve what he got in a meeting here by a mayor that said that it's up to him and the administrator, and when they get it figured out, they'll let the council know. That is not his job. If you want to know what his job is, look at what his job is in our ordinances that says that he has to go through you 8 people. It has to be voted on. It's not up to Jeff. It's not up to him. It's up to our representatives. Please take more time and look into this, because it is a fact that you're being overrun, and that means so is the citizens of Sandwich.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to make a public comment? All right. Last item we have for our committee of the whole meeting is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Yes. All right, Alderman Robinson, is there a second?
Second.
Alderwoman Erickson, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we're adjourned from the committee of the whole. We'll take a short recess and come back with our regular council meeting.